everybody, and by everybody I mean no one, because this is an unplanned live stream. I'm not going to be on very long. You can already see I'm barefaced and ready to go to bed. But I just want to say, because, there's been a lot of reactions about, the recent, unfortunate situation with the political pundit Charlie Kirk. I tend to take, like I said, a spiritual perspective on this, meaning that I don't celebrate the deaths of people. I don't have a political, so, I don't really, for me, I'm very nonchalant about the outcome of any of the affairs of men, if you will. But, I think the celebrating was something that I think people across political spectrums could agree was just a little bit much. And I think that we live in this world right now, especially in America, where we have this notion of freedom of speech, right? And freedom of speech for some people mean that I can say anything that I want without any type of consequences to what I say or do, right? And we see that, we live in the age of media. We live in the age of communication. We live in the age where what you put online, you better mean for it to be online forever. And you have to be very comfortable with anybody seeing what you put online in good faith, whether it's an employer, a neighbor, or anybody. They don't have to agree with what you say, but you have to be able to stand on what you say online. And you have to be able to formulate your thoughts and your opinions online in a way where you're balanced with it, but you're not offensive. And that can be hard in a very polarizing world, and especially in America where people are hyper polarized. But like I said before, I don't think it's appropriate to celebrate the death of people. I think, none of us are above reproach. I think that, we are all going to have our accountabilities. If you're a person of faith, you know that you're going to have your judgment, your individual accountability to your God or whatever, whoever you worship, right? You're going to be accountable to that person, right? But with that being said, in real life, we're also accountable to each other. We're accountable to our employers. We're, like I said, our neighbors. And so here you have these people who have been reacting to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And when it happened, you saw some people, networks, individuals, bloggers online, and some people were very happy that it happened, right? And they got online, recorded a video, and expressed those sentiments to the world about how happy they were that that horrific incident happened to Charlie Kirk. Well, fast forward now, because we live in the age of digital media, which is forever, right? A lot of these people are on a mic talking about that their company has let them go. And I happened to look at this New York Post article, and they're just kind of going through all of the employers that have let people go because they were celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. So let's look at this.
Yesterday at 5 p.m., I was fired from my job for posting a video saying I don't care about Charlie Kirk's death. That was my job. That was it.
And you know what really gets me about people who say that they don't care about stuff? If you don't care about something, you truly don't care about it. You're not talking about it, you're not reacting to it. You really minding your business, not caring anything about it. You don't have to, when you get online and dedicate a video to something, you actually do care about it, right? Let's just be real about that. When you get online, you take your ass, you fix your fingers, because you got to do a whole lot of shit. Like I had to do a whole lot of shit to get online with y'all today, right? But, you care. It's like saying that you break up with somebody, you say, I don't care about that person anymore, but you keep texting them. You keep Facebook stalking them. You care about them, right? or at minimum you are obsessed with them, right? So this lady's like, I got fired from my job because I did not care about Charlie Kirk's passing, according to her. But like, she had to take her not caring a step further and actually go online and post a video about it. And so I guess it got to her employer. And what you talking about, girl?
Yesterday at 5 p.m., I was fired from my job for posting a video saying I don't care about Charlie Kirk's death. That was my job. That was like, wasn't really just my job, it was like my identity too. I think that's been my whole career.
Some American workers have had their jobs placed on the chopping block after publicly mocking the assassination of Charlie Kirk in Utah on September 10th. Immediately after the shooting,
Can I just say, you guys, jobs are scarce in this nation. Jobs are scarce in this nation. If you have a job, you should feel very, very blessed. You should be very, very thankful, right? And the last thing you should want to do is allow your political disposition to put you in a position where you're not being a victim of mass layoffs like so many Americans who are looking for jobs are victims of right now. No, you're a victim of your own damn decisions. That's you're a victim of your own decisions, right? And and then these people, they're crying and shit like that, but it's like, come on now, you are a victim of your own decision. You made the choice to go online and celebrate the gruesome death of somebody that you didn't agree with. You didn't like him, whatever he stood for, you didn't like it. And instead of you just not caring like you said you didn't, you went online to celebrate and you lost your damn job.
graphic video footage of Kirk's death spread online, along with cruel jokes about the right-wing influencer.
I mean, these people are celebrating.
The right-wing influencer.
She said this is cause for celebration.
I mean, I'm not saying I wish death upon someone, but that's what I'm saying for this motherfucker.
A number of American companies have sacked their workers, from Delta pilots to MSNBC pundits and public school teachers, after they were found mocking the disturbing assassination. In a social media post, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said that American Airlines pilots who were caught celebrating the assassination were immediately grounded and removed from service. Delta Airlines also suspended a number of employees after they shared social media posts that went well beyond healthy, respectful debate. Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee called for a Middle Tennessee State University employee to be fired after she wrote, "Looks like old Charlie spoke his fate into existence. Hate begets hate. Zero sympathy." The university...
Now, some could argue that these people are being fired because of their freedom of speech. Some people would argue that these people have the right to feel the way that they do and that their employer should not be terminating them because they have expressed their sentiments about somebody that they don't like, right? Some people may argue that, right? But again, you have to realize that, this guy just spewed off a lot of major companies, right? A lot of major companies, Delta, right? School districts, so these are very communal, right? Where everybody knows these people. And so if you see people that represents your organization online celebrating the death of a political opponent, right? That doesn't necessarily reflect well on your organization. And a lot of companies are very, very adverse to reputational risk. And so this is eye-opening for people, though. If you are employed, especially you young people, you have to realize that your representation of yourself, both inside and outside of the company, that matters. And sometimes it can come back to like hurt you, if you're doing something that would, cause a prospective customer or client to look down on your company, right? again, a lot of companies are very reputational risk averse. And so getting on the internet, expressing just any old thing, right, that you feel, right, sometimes it doesn't work out well for you, right? Sometimes you will lose your whole damn job in the middle of a jobs crisis, in my opinion, where you got hundreds of thousands of Americans, who are just trying to make it. So, like I said, if you are employed, you are blessed. It's a blessing to be employed. So you don't want to just be jumping on this internet, just saying any old thing. Really come with full intentions to be educational, enlighten people, or provide your personal perspective in a way that doesn't create hostility or adds to hostile environments, right? Because America, we're in a very polarized, hostile environment right now, with all of these political spectrums, and even within your given political spectrum, you have a lot of hostility. I mean, you kind of see the conservative movement revealed a little in a way when you see all these little factions kind of pointing the fingers at each other, post, Charlie Kirk's assassination. You got all of these major conservative talking heads, kind of pointing ideological fingers at one another and even other countries. You got Candace Owens, who I am convinced anything that has, see, Candace Owens is that person that will validate, Israel, if they use the excuse that people blame Israel for everything, right? Candace is like the perfect example of why something that statement would be true, right? Because it's like, we don't really we're trying to get more information about this Charlie Kirk shooter. It's a lot of things that seem a little weird to some people, right? But I mean, as opposed to just kind of figuring out, like, let's just see if this really was a radicalized kid that, took out Charlie Kirk. Like, she's on this whole Brigitte Macron type Nancy Drew thing where she's like, no, it was Israel. And it's like, damn, like, you know, it's crazy. I mean, and I don't prescribe to people just blaming other nations for everything. I'm pretty sure Israel has its hand in quite a few things in the United States. But again, if you follow this channel, you guys know, I follow Bible prophecies, and they are the second beast. So they're going to be friends forever. So there is no breaking up the United States and Israel. And it's not even about what the Bible says. It's really how Satan, the devil, has formulated these two nations to be in union in the last and final days. So again, if you follow this blog, you guys, know we talk about how these nations are playing out in these last days. But anyways, you reap what you sow. Galatians chapter 6, verse 7 through 9. It says, first of all, a lot of these people using God, talking about God don't like ugly, God don't like this. I swear, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican, these people weaponize God and faith for their credibility. It's disgusting, and they are mocking God. And a lot of these people are going to reap what they sow. You cannot keep weaponizing the word of God and think that it's ultimately going to work out well for you. But anyways, let's continue on. This is not very long.
University told CNN the employee was fired effective immediately. GOP Rep Nancy Mace of South Carolina also called for the firing of a public school teacher, who posted online that America became greater after the assassination. The district later told local news that the teacher was no longer employed with the district.
It's funny because I remember in 2020, the liberal side was doing a lot of doxing and getting people fired from their jobs because of all their little ideologies and movements and stuff like that. They were really working hard to get people fired. But then now you got the conservative side now They're doing the doxing, they're doing the firing, because of, obviously people are expressing their free speech and they don't like the expressions of their free speech. And again, when you start talking about hate speech is still considered free speech. Hate speech is actually still, if you read the Constitution, hate speech is still free speech, right? It is. You can hate whoever you want in this country. It is actually constitutional to be able to hate whomever you want in this nation. You can even express that hate, right? When you start, but the free speech has limits, right? You can't incite violence, right? You can't do, even though America is completely contradictory on this side, pornography, child pornography, right? That is not protected speech, right? There are things that are not considered protected speech, but hate speech absolutely is protected speech, whether people like it or not, right? It is. And I apologize. My plants have these little net things. I just got these little sticky things, so hopefully they will stop. But hate speech is protected speech. And, these people, they are being fired and let go from their job for expressing what would be considered hateful speech, right? But nevertheless, constitutionally, what all of these people have said were opinions and reactions about somebody's unfortunate demise, but they still arguably had the right to have those opinions. But their employers, like, you do have the right to have those opinions. You just can't work here and have them. And so, lesson learned.
MSNBC analyst Matthew Dowd was axed from the network after he seemed to imply, just moments after the shooting on air, that Kirk's awful words led awful actions to take place.
So the conservatives really didn't like that. They really did not like that. They're like, how dare you say you reap what you sow about Charlie Kirk in this light of this horrible, horrible incident. He had a family. He was a man of God.
And I think that's the environment we're in, that people just, you can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place. And that's the unfortunate environment we're in.
An Office Depot employee at a Michigan store was fired after allegedly refusing to print flyers about Charlie Kirk for a customer. The company called the incident completely unacceptable and insensitive.
So, unfortunately,
so if they say they don't print political propaganda.
There even appears to be a coordinated effort behind the widespread firings with a doxing site called Expose Charlie's Murderers that gathered information about people who made posts about Kirk. The site, whose domain was registered anonymously and is no longer accessible, said it had received nearly 30,000 submissions as of Saturday. In some cases, online supporters of Kirk are even taking matters into their own hands to get mockers fired from their jobs.
Hi, my name is Quinn Pratt, and I like going on the internet and finding people who like to make fun of Charlie Kirk's death, and I let their employers know what they're up to online. All I do is being like, hey, just so you know, I saw this video that one of your employees put out, thought you might want to see it. And I do not contact the employer ever again. Let's get into it. Lucas from Wisconsin, you're fired. Shelby from North Dakota, you've been fired. Mary from Louisiana, you've been fired. Shauna from California.
So you got conservatives out on the block scrubbing the internet. And, obviously Charlie Kirk was some kind of Jesus to these people because they are like, we will get you fired talking about our Jesus. Because this guy is really on a mission. I'm sure you have a wife, some kids, a family. Maybe you got a ministry. Nope, his ministry is scrubbing the internet and looking for people to dox and get fired. He calls their employers, never reaches out to the employer again after he, shares with the employer that they have a video out there. So I don't even think he's really in it for the follow up. I think he's just like, I'm just putting you out. I'm putting it out there, and you can either fire this person or not. But I'm letting you know that they did a very inappropriate video about Charlie Kirk.
Fire.
Starting this month.
So let me get into my chats, but I mean, sometimes it doesn't even pay to, like, if you're not going to offer an opinion that's going to help people to come to understanding of some sort, sometimes it's better not to say anything, especially if you're going to say something very vindictive and rude. It's best not to say anything because people are scrubbing the internet looking for people to fire them. You know what I mean? People are literally scrubbing the internet looking for people, so that, these people can be fired. So, I mean, it's always best to kind of think about, okay, what am I saying, right? Before I start this camera, before I start this video, before I, express how I feel about something, right? Am I using scruples? Am I going to represent myself in a manner that maybe my neighbors and my coworkers can see and still feel comfortable with working with me, or not thinking that I'm unhinged? Because honestly, again, I look at the people, like there's a lot of Black people who are like, we're just very nonchalant. Like they don't have any feelings one way or the other. Then you got Black people who are like, celebrate. They're like, I ain't gonna celebrate them, but screw them all the same. I don't care, right? Then you got, people who are celebrating. It's not just Black people. This is people of all races. But it's like you got people who understand the balance between, I didn't care for his rhetoric. I don't really care about this situation, to those people who are celebrating. They're bringing themselves to celebrate the assassination of somebody. And, I guess, I think that people got to step back too. It's like, while you're celebrating this man not being here, not existing anymore, are you also celebrating the trauma that I believe over 2,000 of those college students and people who were watching that broadcast, people saw that, in real time, right? The people who asked him questions, the people who engaged with him at that event, like they saw that situation go down, right? So it's like, while you're celebrating that this happened to this man, think about the aftermath beyond even him, the trauma. Think about how many people are absolutely traumatized, who have some level of PTSD, being in a situation like that and watching something like that. You know what I mean? It's like, it's really nothing to celebrate. Everything about that situation is tragic. It's really, really tragic. You know what I mean? Even if, like, I know people focus a lot on Charlie Kirk because he is the person that unfortunately lost his life. But there were thousands of people there. Like, are they okay? Are the people that were there okay? Are the people who saw that, are they okay? Right? I mean, it's easy to focus on, the primary victim here, but I feel like there were so many other victims at that event, and we're not even talking about those people that much, right? Like, I mean, and I guess they're just regular people. They were just, whatever, but I'm just saying, how do you celebrate something like that? That was just like, oh my God. I mean, even if you didn't like the guy, at the bare minimum, you were kind of shocked that if you were watching the event, or even just heard about the event, like, damn, for real? Right? But that inclination to celebrate isn't really in, most reasonable people with self-control. So it really tells you the demonic spirit that is attached to so many people's soul. And a lot of times when you have these demonic spirits attached to your soul, things don't really go well for you in the long term. They really don't go well for you in the long term. And these people who have lost their job, right, who are now victims of their own decision, right, reaping what they sow, right, they are testament of that. What you saying, girl?
In my whole career.
Some American workers have had their jobs placed
She's
on
sitting
the
up there
chopping
crying
block
now.
after public.
How you go from celebrating to crying all in one damn week? Doing silly shit, just saying shit. I talk about this all the time. People just come on the mic saying shit. They just don't want to calculate what they say. And again, when you got those evil spirits attached to you, right? You may think you're doing something fun and slick, and you may get a lot of licks and likes and blah, blah, blah. But none of those people liking your shit is paying your bills. Let's keep it real. None of those people that are liking your obnoxious posts they're not paying your bills. So, I mean, for their entertainment, you just took a big ass L in a very horrible job market. I'm sorry. I know people looking for jobs right now. You ain't just going and getting a job right now. You ain't just applying and getting a job. I know people with 200 something plus applications in, right? This is the wrong time to be losing your job in any other situation but extenuating. These idiots literally have lost their jobs because they could not contain the little demon inside of them not to go on the internet and celebrate the death of somebody that they didn't like. And this girl really takes the cake for me because it's like you lost your job over something that you said you didn't even care about, honey.
Yesterday at 5 p.m., I was fired from my job for posting a video saying I don't care about Charlie Kirk's death. That was my job. That was wasn't really just my job. It was
I don't care about Charlie Kirk's death. That's what she said. But if you truly didn't care about it, honey, why did you go online and do a video? Right? If I don't care about something, I truly don't care about it. I'm not talking about it. I'm not posting about it because theoretically, I'm not supposed to care about it, right? This girl lost her whole damn livelihood over something that she claimed she didn't care about. These young people are confused. Young people stay off of social media. It's forever. And some of y'all don't have a good thought process to be on here just speaking your mind because half of y'all ain't got nothing in your damn mind really valuable to speak right now. You gotta live life longer, right? I was helping these small business people, and this girl, she said, she came up to me and she's like, I'm like, what do you do? And she's like, oh, I'm a life coach. And I'm looking at this girl, and she looks like my daughter's age. And I'm like, how old are you? She's like, I'm 21. I'm like, what? She's like, what? And I'm like, you're a life coach? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, what do you help people with? She's like, well, people go through a lot of stress and anxiety and all this stuff. And, and I'm just really trying to get my client base up. And, what would you, recommend? I'm like, find another profession. I'm like, you're 21. I'm like, you haven't even lifed enough to be coaching somebody on life. And I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer or anything or ruin her dreams. But what the hell is a 21-year-old going to teach somebody about life? You haven't even started the game called life yet. Half of us are around the board already, baby. We getting, some of us are in the middle of the board. Some of us are around the board. Right? Your ass is right at the beginning. You right at start talking about you a 21-year-old life coach. Come on, baby. No. These young people got to do better. Parents got to do better. We cannot keep relying on these school systems to teach our kids common sense and core reasoning skills. I think that they teach these kids reasoning skills and puzzles, but you gotta give it to them straight. You know what I mean? No gentle parenting when it comes to the common sense and reasoning lessons to these kids, because so many kids are lacking. So many kids are lacking. But anyways, you guys, let me know what you guys think about the reactions to Charlie Kirk being murdered, and then also the reactions to the reactions from some of these American companies who are very intolerable of their employees getting on the internet and, doing what they perceive to be political hate or hate speech, right? Or celebrating the death of somebody. And let me know. I'm just curious because there's I see 65 people in here. I'm not sure if that's how many really are in here. But just curious. Type yes in the chat if you believe that it is okay to celebrate the death of people that you don't like, ideologically. So type yes if you believe that. I just kind of want to see how many demons are in the house. All right. And then, obviously, no, if you do not believe that, you should be like any of these reactions were suitable, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you don't believe that these reactions were appropriate. And especially for people who claim that they are of faith, don't you think that's a bit satanic? Like, I think people who claim that they are of faith reacting like this, there's some level of Satanism got to be attached to you for you to believe that it's okay. But, I pray for everybody. I pray for everybody. These are the last days. And what does it say? In the last days, critical times hard to deal with will be here. Men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, blasphemers, haughty, right? They're not going to be lovers of goodness. They're going to have a form of godly devotion, but prove false to its power. Man, let's read that. If you a demon, you can check out, right? Because we know the word of God bothers some of these demons, right? But if you a demon, check out. But what was that? Then that's 2 Timothy. And by the way, I got to get back into, I'm going to do another live stream about this. What is it? 2 Timothy 3, 1 through 5. What is the Lord telling us about these last of days? And in the last days, there will be times of great difficulty, marked by people's self-centeredness, love of money, pride, and disloyalty. Don't we see that in that conservative faction, right? A lot of disloyalty going on, alongside false religions, godliness that lacks true spiritual power, or having a form of godly devotion and proving false to its power. And, read 2 Timothy 3, 1 through 5, and it says, from these types of people turn away. I look at any person who professes to be of faith in the way of the Messiah that was sent, the seed of David. Anyone who professes that that is their Messiah, that is their king, and they are attached to these political positions that incites them or inspires them or inclines them to want to celebrate, the death of political opponents, or even people that you don't agree with on a social disposition, right? You got to do some praying. You got to check your faith, right? You got to check your faith, right? Because you're supposed to be separate from the world. And if you're responding like people in the world do, you might have to check your faith. You might have to check your faith. All right. But I always like to say, love your neighbor as yourself. If you would not disrespect or abuse yourself, do not disrespect or abuse your neighbor. Um, Before I go, though, did anybody catch Candace Owens? Yeah, I talked about it earlier, but Candace seems very, very emotional. She seems very, very emotional. Obviously, and it seems like, she's, you know, I pray for everybody, and I don't agree with how Candace Owens had her humble beginnings and how she came up or anything like that. But I do have real concern for Candace Owens. I really do. I think that there's a reason why people, and some people can say, well, they're scared, they're cowards, they're this, they're that, right? But I think if anybody has learned anything, being in these Rockefellering like type of systems of things, the systems of the satanic ones, um, you're not gonna stop them. I mean, you can reveal them, you can Nancy Drew these people all damn day, right? Even down to the Epstein. You're talking about organized Satanists, all right? These aren't just regular people, right? These are organized Satanists who are tapped into energies that I don't think a lot of people really comprehend, right? And I'm not saying that what Candace Owens is doing is not, valiant, but at the same time, I think that, again, she's taking the risk to get views on her platform. She's challenging, a lot of these social conversations, especially in connection with Israel, right? And, like I said, from my spiritual perspective, the United States and Israel, they're the second beast. So they are in union. They're not going to not be in union. They're always going to be friends. And this is my biblical understanding. So when I see the United States enabling Israel to do all kinds of things, right? I don't get bent out of shape about it because, again, this is part of a prophecy that I'm following, right? I don't follow politics as much as I follow Bible prophecies and how these nations are playing out. And so for me, I look at this union among these nations as being something very prophetic, not in a holy way, but obviously in a way that leads us to timelines of judgments. And so I don't, it doesn't bother me. Like, I don't get, I'm like, of course, when I see United States enabling Israel, when I see Israel having such an integral influence in the United States, I don't look at that from a nationalistic eye. I look at it from a spiritual eye. And then my spiritual eye is like, it makes sense because these nations are the second beast. They're in union. So they're going to enable each other until the cows come home. But again, I'm not running on these organized religious idealisms. And I think that it does really pay to dig into the Word of God yourself if you're a believer, so that you kind of understand that we're kind of living Bible prophecy right now. And I see that these nations are collapsing economically. And I think a really good thing to watch is Ray Dalio. He has a documentary, a little docu-series or something. I listen to Ray Dalio sometimes. But he has this docu-series, and it talks about the rise and fall of different empires throughout history, and he looks at it from the economic lens. Um, And when you look at Ray Dalio's documentary, and he's looking at the rise and the falls of these empires and all the telltale signs that the empire is going to fall, obviously it's a degrading in the societies, it's a degrading in the education system, the financial systems are all screwed up, and that's kind of where America is right now. And so, when you think about a powerhouse, right? We're supposed to be a world power, but we're in debt. And then you kind of go back to the old Roman Empire and really what was causing the dissolution, the dissolving of the Roman Empire. And it's like nothing new is under the sun. These nations are literally rising and falling the same damn way. So America is behaving just like Rome. And, when Rome was in its last rites of power, if you will, right? The best way that they could do to, the only thing that they could do to really try to sustain themselves was to try to conquer other places, right? And this is how every major empire last rights themselves, trying to go to war and conquer other places. But I think that warfare now, modern warfare, is way different than it's ever been before. I think you have nations who are capable of, wiping out very large segments of this globe with their military capabilities. And so, you know, humanity is in a worse crisis now with the capabilities to wipe us out in like a second than we've ever been before. And so when we see this volatility growing between these nations and these factions of nations, right? It's cause for concern. Beyond economics, it's cause for concern. And so, like I said, I pray for everybody. I think everybody's looking at world events, world affairs from different lenses. I look at things from, a biblical perspective, but I also look at the cycles of the secular perspective as well. There's nothing new under the sun. And, again, I just say for my fellow believers, I mean, I just feel like, I feel like we're closer than, the people of faith before have ever been before with these timelines. And just keep your faith strong, right? And you kind of got to be like Job and be willing to lose it all and still keep your faith. So prayers up, everybody. Prayers up. Watch what you say on the internet, because obviously there's somebody out there who's waiting to be offended. And you don't, some I've had people call my job, right? I've had people try to get me fired from jobs for political positions before, or social positions, especially when it came to the trans argument, because in my world, women are women and men are men. There are only two sexes. There's a reason why men and women, when they come together, for the most part, they can create that thing called other people. Life is a cycle, right? And I think, people trying to redefine what God has created, it just kind of just demonstrates the Satanism in this world, but again, we're all going to be accountable for what we do and how we identify, all that good jazz. But again, love your neighbor as yourself. If you would not disrespect or abuse yourself, do not disrespect or abuse your neighbor. Ghetto Planet, I see you. I see you. I see you. I see you. I am not trans. I am not trans. I was literally, it's so funny because I was literally having this conversation with somebody because they're like, people are always looking at black women, especially darker skinned black women, and they're always throwing that trans argument. I can account for what people believe and what they see. Some people see, believe what they see. Me personally, my 3 kids that came out of my vagina says that no trans woman can never do that. But that's just me, right? Anyways, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your evening. And again, trans people live in my community. And I say hello and keep it moving. Okay? I don't go out of my way to disrespect them or their lifestyle or anything like that. But they absolutely know that you don't have an ally in me. If I see somebody beating your ass on some dumbass shit, me and my people, we gonna look out for you and we gonna stop that shit because there's no reason to do that to you for your identity, right? So I mean, if that's what you call ally, just doing the right thing, then whatever. But I'm not doing it because you're trans. I'm doing it because you're a human being. But anyways, that's my position. We don't have to go out our way to disrespect other people. Only demons do that. So, if you're a demonic person, and most of the times they're ugly people. They're ugly people. Most of the people, the people with the nastiest attitudes hate themselves the most. They have the lowest value, and they're typically jealous of other people that have higher values in society. And I find that the most unattractive people are the meanest, nastiest people because they're literally putting their shit, their insecurities on other people like we were they mommy and daddy and made they asses. And, most people in society, we're not going to tolerate that. But anyways, let me go into my chat for a little bit. What's going on, chat? I am tired. It's been a long Monday. It's been a long Monday. And if you're saying some rude shit in my chat, just know that I do scrub my chat. I do block people from my channel. It's just that right now I'm too tired. That's why I haven't even looked at the chat like that. Because I'm like, I don't even have time. I don't have the energy to be rebuking you demons and your ugly ass mama that brought you to society. I don't have that time right now. I don't have the energy. So you better be happy. But we do rebuke you nasty communicating demons in the name of our Lord. Amen. All right, guys, I'm about to get out of here, but Ghetto Planet, show some love to my moderator. Show some love to my moderator. He's the nice one. I don't know where Info Warriors went, but he's the mean one. I like both of them. I like both of my moderators because they're a nice little balance of each other. Info Warriors like, look, I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to give you a chance, guy. And then we're going to get you out of here, right? He really do be giving people chances. InfoWars like, get the fuck out of here. You got to have the good cop, bad cop. You got to have the good cop, bad cop. So show some love to Ghetto Planet because I'm sure he's been nice to a lot of y'all up in here. We got to put some, we're going to put some gangster on Ghetto Planet. Ghetto Planet, we need to up your gangster a little bit. Time to get out of here. We don't want your rude ass up in here. All right. But what's going on, Brian? Brian. Peace and blessings to you. I missed you in the last live stream. And you know me, if I'm on a train of thought, I'm not going to look at the chat because I just can't deal with the little ignorance. But what's going on, Brian? Let me go through here and see if some of my regulars are here that I miss. I see Brian. What's up to the new people? What's going on to y'all? I see you. Mark Gilmore, Rick Liu, Bryce. I see you guys. I see you guys got the angels in y'all because y'all like, no, it's not cool to celebrate. It's cool to just keep your damn mouth shut and not care about the people that you claim you don't care about, right? Most people celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, right? Some of these people didn't even know who he was, right? They heard of Charlie Kirk after the incident. Then they went on the internet, and they started looking at all these little videos that people compiled of Charlie Kirk, right? And now they're happy that he's dead. And it's like, that's how you came to the conclusion of your celebration. You didn't even know the guy, right? If you don't know somebody, if you don't care about something, please walk away from this live stream just with this fundamental thing. Because this girl literally said she lost her job because she did not care about Charlie Kirk dying. And my whole thing is, if you don't care about something or even someone, make it count. Like, truly don't care. Don't talk about that person. Don't do no videos about that person. Don't communicate about that person. Not caring means that that person is not on your radar. You are not giving energy to that person at all. This young lady said she did not care about him dying. Well, we need you to stay there, right? And this is a learning curve for her because she looked very young. If you don't care about something, stay there. Don't lose your job getting on the damn internet and celebrating somebody's death, or even coming off like you celebrating somebody's death, only for somebody who's passionate about that person to call your employer and dox you and get you fired, right? So, overarching theme, if you don't care about something, truly don't care. And remember, if we reap it, right? If we reap, we reap what we sow. We reap what we sow. And that, I know a lot of people don't know what that means deeply. But please, if you just need some wisdom for today, look at what I will read. Like all these people talking about affirmations and meditations. Here's a code for you. You reap what you sow. Understand what that means fully, right? And it will help guide you to be a little bit more meticulous about what you do in the future. And this is for the young people, right? Because I see a lot of young people, they're the ones crying about losing their jobs, right? And so you got to get a control over your emotions, your reactions, and you got to be calculated in life, right? If you are elevating your career path, this guy said he worked at Microsoft and lost his job. If you're elevating your career path to be able to work in some of the United States top companies, you cannot behave like your peers. You cannot do what your peers do. Okay? Right? What was that song by Tears for Fears? Everybody wants to rule the world, and he's like, welcome to your life. There's no turning back. Even when you sleep, we will find you. We will find you acting on your best behavior. Turn your back on Mother Nature. Okay, it's coming to me. Yeah, that song is pretty deep, right? I mean, and I think if you put it in the context of modern social media, right, we are being watched. Everybody is being watched. This is a surveillance country. This is a surveillance state. This is a surveillance world, right? So just be acting on your best behavior, okay? All right? Act on your best behavior, right? Now I'm about to go listen to Tears for Fears while I go brush my teeth. You guys have a good night. Bye.